handful. So
Yes, I don't do puppies. I barely do
yeah.
children. Okay. I'm so excited to be here with you since I'm going to actually use this audio, which I think I can do. I'm tech savvy enough and turn it into a podcast. Do you mind if I do an official intro?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, cool. Hey everyone, and welcome to Remodeled Love, the podcast here live on my TikTok channel, which is Home Slice Productions. I'm still having feelings about if I need to combine my brand. I'm all over the place. I'm bisexual, polyamorous in nature, and everything that I do, I cannot stick to one brand. We are continuing our Polyamorous Men series with a very special guest today, the meme master himself. It's the good Chad at Polyam Fam. What's up, man?
How's it going?
So I just got the joke of the good Chad and this morning and died.
Yeah. Because originally my website, my art website, goodchad.com, plug, was the headline was "My name is Chad. I'm so sorry." Just like the name is so universally hated. And the funny thing was, up until recently, I worked in an office with someone named Karen. So together we were the internet's worst nightmare.
I got it instantly. As soon as I was like, the good Chad, I was like, oh, I get it. I think I do. So the mission here at Remodeled Love, which is the Instagram channel where we are mutuals, is to expand the cultural narrative on healthy relationships and polyamory. And so kind of my specialty is the software of our consciousness, right? And in my podcast, my partner and I, we're really dorks for this thing called semiology. And semiology is the signs and symbols that our brain sees and understands how to interact with the world. And so sometimes when something is not in our semiology, it's really, we can't step into it. It doesn't make sense to us. It's very strange. So for example, the first time you walked into a grocery store and everyone was wearing masks a year and a half ago, this is brand new semiology, right? It's completely strange. You've never seen that symbol before, and now it's totally normalized. And my mission with, Remodeled Love is to infiltrate the semiology of the consciousness of the culture by creating signs and symbols that help to normalize things, which is why I came out swinging with my series of ridiculous polyamory sketches. That this is the mission behind it. And you're doing the same thing with your memes, and so are a lot of our other fellow meme content creators. And what I've noticed recently in my polyamorous coaching practice, working with clients one-on-one, is that polyamorous men or polycurious men or just men in general don't have the semiology. They don't have the examples. They are not literally seeing how to be polyamorous men. And I know when all of the content creators looked at our stats, right? My stats are 80% women on my page. I think yours were 60% women. Is that right?
Like 66, 67, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty high, mid to high 60s.
But definitely you have a higher audience for men than I do. And I think this is because it's safer for men, right, to follow other men. And I noticed that people always want to hear more from my husband. And so now I'm on this new mission with this Polyamorous Men series to literally just show men being polyamorous, talking about polyamory, talking about their struggles. And so thank you for doing this with me today.
Time. My pleasure.
Awesome. So we're going to do this interview, and then at the end, if we have questions from viewers, we'll take them. But for right now, it's just me and you. So I want to start with your polyam origin story. Tell us age, what your life was like, what you were doing, how the hell you discovered polyamory, learned it was a thing, dipped your toe in, and decided it was right for you.
Well, for most of my life, I was a very serial monogamist, actually, which I think a lot of people are surprised by. Up until, 26, 27, I didn't even really know what the word polyamory meant. I grew up in rural Missouri. It was just not a thing. I mean, at least not talked about, right? Uh, just not a thing that was talked about. Didn't even realize it was an option. But I always considered myself just generally sort of more of a progressive person. So, not closed off to things. And so my wife and I got married, coming up on 4 years ago now. And we had been monogamous up to that point, and I had only been in monogamous relationships, but I knew when marrying my wife that she had been in kind of alternative sort of relationship structures previously. So it wasn't, it was something a little bit unspoken, but like we kind of like knew like, hey, stuff like this may be a possibility down the road. Didn't really expect it to happen so soon. How happy it did. So one night, um, oh man, yeah. COVID has like even messed with like my years in my head. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
don't even know like what year things happened anymore because COVID is just like what are years anymore?
totally.
Um, but
2020 is
three
just gone.
years ago,
Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly, do over. About 3-ish years ago, um, what kind of kicked it off was we were out, just kind of pre-pandemic, at not really a club, but like bar, sort of like dance scene or whatever. And my wife was kind of talking to this person, and they ended up being like a little intimate and just like kissing at the and all above board. Like I knew about like wasn't any sort of like shiftiness going behind my back, anything like that, right? Um, but then like a couple days later, um, she told me like, oh, we like exchanged information and we've been talking, and I kind of said like, oh, well, what does this mean? Like does this mean this is like more than a friend, more than an acquaintance? And that kind of kicked off the whole conversation that kind of turned into a snowball after that. So initially, I mean, it was a bit of a shock to me. Again, like I said, I had known what her previous relationship structures had been. Didn't expect it to kind of come so soon or suddenly. But kind of took a breath, talked about it a whole lot, and decided that's something we wanted to explore together, and something that I was open to, despite never having done anything like that before. So long, trials and tribulations, similar to, and I think a lot of men come to my page initially thinking that I've just been polyamorous my entire life, or like that I've been doing it for decades, whatever, and are, don't realize that I've only been polyamorous for 4-ish years now, possibly 3-ish, even maybe closer to 3. And that I've gone through a lot of the same stuff they did. I'm not an exceptional person who is, free from all of the things that men talk about having issues with, and I've gone through it myself.
So many questions, so many directions I want to go in. Obviously, you can say pass to any question that's like beyond the boundary of yours. Can we know
Okay.
the gender of the person your wife was making out with at the bar?
Mm. Yes, she was a woman. And I actually, like, I think to myself, I'm like, that scenario in my mental state at that time, or my emotional, like, at that time, I most definitely would have reacted differently if it was not a woman. And I don't like that fact, but naming it, acknowledging it, and like, kind of moving forward from that is the important part, because even after we, started, we never had any sort of like one penis policy or anything like that. Because like, I mean, even having not experienced polyamory or open relationships or anything, I knew that still didn't sit right with me. I was just like, no. But I did still in the beginning kind of have a preference of her dating women. And like, even at the time, I knew that wasn't right. I knew that was, misogynistic, transphobic, a whole laundry list of things. But I definitely had to work through that. Even though I knew like kind of where I wanted to be with that, I still had to work a lot to get there.
So you're fucking amazing, because I think so many men need to hear that. And this is, I'm also a dork for shadow work. And honestly, shadow work at the end of the day is accepting and owning these parts of ourselves that we don't like. And so just being able to say out loud, publicly on the internet, that yes, you struggled with the gender of who your wife was with, and that was problematic. You still allowed her to do what she wanted, but fully owning that you had those feelings, I think is a huge thing that men need to hear. So
Yeah.
was there a time that then she started to venture with masculine partners, and how was that growth period for you?
Past that, that particular relationship didn't really go anywhere. They chatted on and off, but it wasn't, something that like immediately took off. And then there was a period of time, not super long, but like where we didn't really see anyone outside of our relationship. But then, since then, she's dated mostly. She's identifies as bisexual, pansexual. Has dated almost exclusively men. Like she's dated women as well. But yeah, that's just kind of how the cards have fallen. And yeah, I struggled with it at first, even, having even if you prepare as much as you possibly can, if you've had your entire life where that's just not been a thing, when you have to come face to face with it, even if you've conceptualized it in your mind and like mentally prepared for it, you're still gonna struggle. Like, and I think a lot of men struggle with that because they, think to themselves just like, oh, okay, I'm ready for this. I've read stuff. I've like, prepared myself mentally, like good to go. And then their partner goes on their first date with, someone of the opposite gender usually. And they freak out and they think, oh, never mind, this isn't for me. And it's like, that's a normal feeling. Like it's, you don't have to be 100% ready, prepared, for that, for you to be doing a quote unquote good job at polyamory.
Yes. Yeah. Amen. Preach. And I think, like you said, so much of what I see in my coaching practice is people who have this idea cerebrally of who they want to be as a polyamorous person and how they're going to show up. And then the moment comes and that's not how they're feeling. Do you advocate for being in that feeling while moving forward with it?
Kind of yes, but also depending. I think it depends. Because sometimes I think absolutely yes, to like sit with that feeling, think about where it's coming from. But there's other times where I felt, is like I'm going mentally in a bad direction with my thoughts and emotions right now, just like sitting with it. I need to do something else, right? So I think it's both, right? Like I think it's very important to like sit in it, acknowledge everything, think about things, but at the same time, know when it's okay to just take a break, do something else, kind of not think about it too much. Because I think you have to have both.
Perfect answer, and obviously the right answer. Where do you feel like, so actually, sorry, going back, what is your guys' style of polyamory? Are you kitchen table, parallel, kind of whatever the relationship calls for?
Whatever the relationship calls for, primarily kitchen table. I really enjoy meeting, my wife's partners. She enjoys the same from me. Because I mean, usually if we're, dating someone, chances are the other person's gonna like them a whole lot, like romantically or just platonically.
Mm-hmm.
So we, kitchen table, but obviously that kind of depends on the comfort level of the other people too. Like, some people don't necessarily want to, meet the other partner, and I'm okay with that too. Just kind of whatever the relationship dictates. Prefer kitchen table, and so far that's kind of just how it's been.
I was going to say, my next follow-up question was, has that changed over time?
Um, a little bit. I think it was always sort of that way, but in the beginning, I was definitely a less secure person. I had a lot more insecurities, and a lot more issues with meeting partners, things like that. So while it was still kind of kitchen table polyamory in that I was never like closed off to it, I was never like, oh, I don't want to meet, anyone. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. It was definitely more difficult in the beginning. But then I kind of realized that, meeting these partners and knowing these people like helps me with my insecurity instead of because I thought it was gonna like hurt me and like make me so jealous and so insecure to meet this awesome person who's just better than me and blah 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 blah. But it helped me. I'm like, oh, this person's a human. Like I know this person. Like I can talk to this person and realize that like they are not a danger to my partner or me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Meeting your metas tends to humanize them in a way that actually helps you. I know for me, it's sometimes a journey. Like, it humanizes them, and then if I, it might bring up an insecurity I wouldn't have if I hadn't met them. Like, so it's kind of like a roller coaster. I know for me and my husband, when we opened up 8 years ago, he was like, I don't want to meet him. I don't want to know him, and now it's like, oh, hey, brother, how are you? So his journey has become a lot softer. And I think it's so important for men who are curious about polyamory to know that that's okay. You don't have to be the version that you maybe pedestal in your mind as superior, and it's okay for things to change over time. I think that's a very, at least American male, like, energy of like needing to be perfect right away. I don't want to have to ask for any help, and I don't want to have to be imperfect.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Absolutely.
Do you feel like, so you were talking about you are a less insecure person now. Do you feel like polyamory has helped you heal your insecurities, or just that you still have them, they're just not as, they don't have as much power over you, or mix of both?
But I would lean towards like healing. I legitimately, and I've said multiple times on my page, I feel like my polyamory journey has legitimately made me a better person both inside and outside my relationships. I there's so much work on your jealousy and things like that that in a monogamous relationship you can kind of just not deal with a lot of the time, because the most that's probably going to happen outside of like, unethical behavior like cheating and stuff like that is your partner's going to find someone else attractive and you're going to have some issues, right? But beyond that, in a monogamous relationship, you can kind of put everything else to the side, right? But in a polyamorous relationship, you like it's you. I guess you can also put that to the side, but I feel like everyone's going to be better off if they come face to face with it. You know what I mean? So it's made me face a lot of my insecurities and a lot of like the things I grew up with and the things I was taught my entire life, and really helped me, I think, heal a lot of things that I was just straight up wrong about. You know, um, because even though as progressive of a person as I fancied myself before polyamory, I still had all those like, kind of toxic masculine traits to different degrees. I wasn't like so like possessive that, it was insane like some of these posts I see. But but I definitely, I kind of had those feelings of insecurity, like, oh, another man is gonna, be better than me and more manly than me, and she's gonna like him more. Like, and it was a weird dichotomy because like even when stuff like that would arise, like consciously, I knew like, well, this isn't the right way to think about this, and like something's not right here. But I still had to like push through that. I couldn't just like tell myself to be better and immediately be better. And I think that's what a lot of people look for, both with like when someone asks for like tips for dealing with jealousy. I feel like sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they're looking for literal just like light switches, right? That you can just, oh, I can do this thing and I'll feel less jealous and it'll be great. Not exactly how it works. So, but yeah.
Can you talk about even one example or more of the insecurities that you have overcome, or an example of a piece of toxic masculinity that you no longer resonate with thanks to your polyamorous journey?
Ooh, good question. So one example of kind of an insecurity that I've had to overcome. Like a lot of men, my number one insecurities, like group of insecurities, have been sexual. That's very common with polyamorous men because we've been taught, our entire lives that if your partner finds someone else sexually attractive, something is wrong. That's a problem. That's a threat. Like, so naturally, those have been my biggest insecurities. And one thing I was just thinking about this the other day. My wife was dating someone who was into a particular kink. I won't get too like, specific just for their privacy reasons. But and it wasn't anything that I would call like extreme, like, out of this world or whatever. Like, But even this small thing, kind of set my brain into, oh, well, but we've never done that before. I have to be the first person to do that with you, like, panicking almost, right? Um, and I think about that now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've grown so much from there. Like I wouldn't think that sometimes, like, because we've been kind of practicing that thing for a while, both me, multiple people, not just me and her. And now, like, we'll be going to, somewhere to practice that or whatever. And sometimes I literally just have something else to do and I'll just be like, oh, can your other partner go? And like I thought about that and I'm like, oh my God, like that would have never ever been my response like 3 years ago. I would have been freaking out. Like, okay, neither of us can go because I can't go because you can't enjoy this thing without me. Like, you know.
Wow, yeah.
So that's something like a specific example that I feel like I progressed a whole lot with. And as far as the toxic masculinity side of it goes, um, just the feeling that another man having traits that my partner likes is a threat to me, right?
Mm, mm.
That's something that I struggled with a lot in the beginning, and I feel like I've progressed a whole lot with that because it's not some people, and it's not even necessarily sexual. Sometimes there's literally just this completely platonic interest that this other person has that I don't have, but them having it and sharing that with my partner doesn't make that a threat to me, right? That doesn't mean I'm lesser. That doesn't mean they love me less. That just means that's a thing that they can enjoy and I don't have to, you
Uh,
know. So I feel like that's something I've progressed a lot on as well.
there is honestly nothing sexier than hearing a man talk about how he overcame insecurities and toxic masculinity elements of them. Like, on behalf of women everywhere, thank you. One of the good
Thank
chads.
you.
um,
I try.
what things helped you as a polyamorous man? So, kind of going back to looking at, all of the content creators' stats, we see an exorbitant, like, higher number of women following polyamory accounts. And we have theories that it's just maybe more women are on Instagram and social media in general. Maybe it's easier for women to seek out education than it is for a man to like seek out education. So, what things have helped you as a man work through insecurities, toxic masculinity, learning how to be a healthy polyamorous man despite the lack of semiology in the culture?
Mhm. So this is actually something that I've been trying to talk about on my pages more, is specifically kind of masculinity, more specifically toxic masculinity within polyamory, because I can't remember what the first post was about it. I made some meme about it or whatever, and it just exploded, blew up, and I'm like, oh, I did not know that people necessarily wanted this very specific type of polyamory content, but apparently it helped out a lot of people, both men and women. So I'm like, okay, let's try to dive more into that. Got to shout out buddy's podcast, Molding Masculinity. Not just because I did the logo for it, although I did illustrate. But basically, they talk about things that traditional toxic and non-toxic masculinity traits and how we can like kind of reframe how we think about masculinity and what we think of as masculinity, because a lot of things that a lot of people think of as masculinity are inherently just bad, right? Like anger, a lot of people just straight up associate anger with masculinity, and that doesn't have to be the case, right? There's a whole episode about like how they've worked on kind of reframing, almost reprogramming themselves to, instead of like having a bad thing happen and then just going straight to anger as a response, as they've been taught throughout their life as men, to kind of like take a breath and like switch that and be like, okay, I'm being angry at an inanimate object right now. This doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so just a lot. The things that have helped me is just a lot of listen. Honestly, the biggest thing has just been listening to women, because I feel like there's a big, yeah, I mean, straight up, there's like, there's this, I feel like there's an aversion, even within even within some polyamory circles, even within like progressive, leftist, whatever term you want to use politically, circles, even with men who will call themselves progressive, call themselves, all these things, that there's still kind of a hesitancy to just listen to women, right? There's always the thing, and I think that's another thing that has been taught to us just our entire life is like you always have to have a rebuttal when something is said to you that doesn't fit with your worldview, right? Like, but yeah, I listen to women about what traits they find toxic, what problems they have with dating, stuff like that, and kind of think about it. And I'm like, okay, so how does this fit with what I either think now or previously thought, and like what, kind of just working towards a general, just like better understanding. And that's helped me a whole lot. I got to say, one unique experience with polyamorous men is being able to um, have your partners, especially straight polyamorous men that are dating women, is to have your partners share dating horror stories with you as they happen. It is it is experience, like, because one of the big issues that I had in the beginning, which again is what a lot of polyamorous men experience, is my wife and I both got on dating apps and I got zero matches because men who don't pay an exorbitant already have hard times matching on dating apps, and then to tack on polyamory in there just makes it that much harder. um but my wife just matched hundreds, like a ridiculous amount, and it was just so overwhelming to me, right? But then I realized, I'm like, oh, 99% of these are horrible. like, I'm kind of happy I don't really have that many matches because the ones I do get aren't just a total dumpster fire. So there's always, looking at that other side, listening to the experiences and what, women think are toxic traits of men has really helped me progress, I feel like.
What do you feel like, besides anger and jealousy, what are some toxic traits of men that you have learned from listening to women? What a concept, by the way.
It's not that hard. People think it's that hard. It's really not. That is an excellent question. The tendency, I mean, mansplaining is a big one. Like, just the tendency to always seem to have to say something when a woman is sharing anything, right? I think that's incredibly toxic and something I catch myself doing to this day. The other day, I can't remember. I was explaining something very simple, like, whatever, and they said like, "Oh yeah, I know this," and then like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." Like, I'm like, "Oh shit." Like, so that's a big one that I think men, when called out for mansplaining, often have a very negative response that kind of makes it worse almost, because instead of like being like, "Okay, what did I do wrong here? What, even considering what that person was saying, instead of doing that, they're just like, oh, well, just everybody's offended nowadays." Like, like it's throw your hands up, not my problem, sort of like that someone else's feelings matter, right? That's the biggest one that comes off.
I was once on a date where I got mansplained what mansplaining is. It was very meta. I was like, the Matrix has been fucking hacked. I was like, does he not realize that he's doing this? And then
Oh
I tried
dear.
to tell him that he did it, and then he mansplained why he wasn't mansplaining. And it was just like down the rabbit fucking hole. Like, I could not even handle it. Yeah, and I agree. I think in general, when
Oh,
people are called out on anything, it's this, oh, well, I can't even have an opinion at all. I guess if I have an opinion, I'm mansplaining. And it's like, can you just pause? Like, and I think that
right,
goes
right.
to being wrong. I think culturally,
Yeah.
no one knows how to be wrong. And the more privilege you have, the harder it is for you to be wrong because you've never been wrong. And so,
Oh, absolutely.
cis het white men have the hardest time being wrong. Cis het white women right below that. And so in general, when somebody points out something, it's just such an uncomfortable feeling. And in 2017, I had something catastrophic happen in my life that tore apart, something I had spent a decade building. And immediately I went to a mentor who really taught me how to learn to be wrong. And I spent 3 years working with that mentor. Literally, I call them my learning to be wrong coach. And I feel like learning to be wrong has been the single most important thing I've had to learn on for just as a human, as a white woman who
Oh yeah.
wants to be an abolitionist and an ally, um, but also on my polyamorous journey. And then I don't want to speak for my husband, but I can say as his partner, him, because he also went on this journey to learn to be wrong. And I think it has just made our polyamorous journey so much more efficient, first of all, so that like when we do come upon conflict, we aren't spending a week in this dance and drama of like an argument before finally
Yeah.
getting to what it actually is. But yeah, I just think
Mm.
that what you spoke about was really profound and it resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, and I think people, like you said, inside and outside of polyamory, like uh, we as people, just any given person is wrong or at least ignorant about almost everything. like all the knowledge that exists in the world, like each individual person doesn't know 99.9% of it. So like it's okay to admit that. Like it's not like you have to know everything in the world, have to be right about everything. It's okay to like challenge yourself and allow yourself to at least consider, am I wrong about this? Is this person, disagreeing with me? Do they have valid points? And I think a lot of people get hung up on that, right? Just the defensive wall comes up and you just gotta, defend yourself no matter what, no matter how wrong you are. And yeah, I think polyamory has taught me, like you said, in and outside of my relationships, to just handle that way better.
Awesome. What do you feel like you needed as a man exploring polyamory? Hold on, go roll with me on this because it's a very specific archetype. A man in a
Okay.
monogamous marriage whose wife was the initiator of the polyamorous path and more eager initially and was quicker to find another partner. What did you need to surrender to that path?
Over communication
Mm.
is what comes. Like I'm was about to make a TikTok answering a question, actually, because my number one tip for anyone who's questioning, at least, or just on the beginning of their journey, is to overshare a little bit. Now, obviously, don't mess with the boundaries of other people. Like, if certain information being shared is going to violate the boundary of this other person, then no go. But I needed oversharing and over reassurance. I wanted to know, and this exaggerating everything, right? Like, and no, I'm not entitled to know everything, and I knew that at the time as well. But like, the more information I could have to just digest and kind of see what the scenario in front of me was, the more comfortable I was with that scenario, you know. Um, because fear of the unknown is a huge thing, right? I mean, for me specifically, it's a massive thing, but for everybody, it's a huge thing. Like, the unknown is scary. So like just any information that I was entitled to have, I wanted. Basically, there was nothing past a certain. Maybe there was a short period at the very beginning where I got freaked out and be like, I don't want to know this. I don't want to know that. But like very quickly, I was just like, all right, I feel like I need to hear anything that I'm at liberty to know, and that helped me so much. And also just I think a lot of men are simply scared to ask their partners for reassurance, and it doesn't have to be this grand dramatic thing. It can be as simple as, hey, I'm not feeling too great today. Like I'm just like kind of in my head mentally. I just need to hear that like we're okay and everything's fine. Even that simple thing that is not going to shouldn't make anyone fly off the handle or anything like that goes such a long way when you need it, right? But I think a lot of men tend to be like, well, I don't want to, that's such a silly thing. I don't want to like ask for that. That's just me being, not masculine or whatever. Like even if that's not the conscious thought, like um, and they just let it kind of brew. And we're as men, we're often taught not to communicate that stuff like that. Um, so those were the two biggest things that I needed. Were just like as much information as I was at liberty to have, and being able to ask for reassurance when I needed it.
I love your mind. And we're so like on the same wavelength because you keep heading down like where my next questions are going. And so like this conversation,
Perfect.
yeah, it's great. What a great first date, I want to say. I was going to ask you, so when I'm in my triggers or in my wounds on the polyamorous path, I have like a go-to list of what I need for my partner to help me make me feel better. And mine is affirmation. And I'm not sure if that's because my love language is affirmation or if that is just like a universal life jacket that would help all people. So I was going to ask you, like, when you are really in your shit with polyamory, like, what things do you need from your partner? You mentioned affirmation and reassurance. Is there anything else?
Um, Specifically, I just need them to, I often, and this still happens sometimes, I just need them to like listen to where my mind is going. Sometimes I literally just need to be like, hey, I know what I'm like, the stuff I'm about to say is not, is toxic, is this, is that, is bad, but I just need to get it out of my face and like into your ears to just like show you the context of where I am right now, right? And I feel like that's an important preface for a lot of conversations because I've done that. I've been in a really bad place. I have like named that what is happening in my mind is toxic, not good, overly hyper jealous, something like that. But I still like, in order to get past it, in order to chew on it, in order to just like deal with it, I have to tell my partner, right? Because then oftentimes they will say something that I didn't even expect, or like my brain being in its insecure place just didn't even think to say, and it'll just like, make me feel 1,000 times better immediately. And the fact that I have that, that freedom, that trust to be able to say, hey, this is bad and I know it's bad, but I need to say it. Um, and for my partner to react positively and be like, okay, let's deal with this was a bit of a game changer for me. Just like just being able to be like, okay, thank goodness. Like, like now I can deal with this. Like I just couldn't do it with it all in my head and nobody else knowing it. And it just like,
You know what that is? It's shadow work. That's literally shadow work because it is taking what is in the darkness, what is hidden inside of you, and it shows it to the light. And I always say confession is one of the most powerful pieces of shadow work you can do. And sometimes is all you need to do. Like sometimes you need to confess and then heal or move the energy. But a lot of times just showing the insecurity to the light by sharing it through confession with your partner, the energy moves and you're like, wow, I just needed to say that out loud. I don't even need you to affirm me. I actually just needed to say it. When I was
yeah.
pregnant, I had a lot of stuff come up, especially toward the end of my pregnancy, at the beginning of this year. And I've never told anyone this. Remind me to make content around this. Do you find yourself saying that, by the way? Do you find yourself being like, I need to make a meme?
All the time. I'm just like, remind me to make a note about this. Remind me. Like, I know there's a good meme there. I need to think about it for a sec, but I don't have time right now. Like,
totally. Okay, so I
I'll
want
send
to
it to
make content
myself.
around this now because, like, honestly, this whole conversation I've been like, oh, that's meme, that's a meme. Okay. So when I was pregnant, I had this crazy ass thing brewing, and finally, I just needed to say it out loud, and I was like, I feel like you are hoping that I die during childbirth so that you can leave me for your girlfriend. And the second that I said it, I was like, wow, okay, I'm done. I don't feel that anymore. Like, it was fucking psycho. And I
Yeah.
buried it and buried it and buried it and buried it. And it was like giving me nightmares and anxiety. And the second that I said it, it was gone. And my partner didn't laugh at me, and he wasn't even mortified. He was just like compassionate. And I feel like so
Yeah.
many times I get DMs from people that are like, when I tell my partner how I'm feeling, like they just shit on me. And I'm like, then you have a shitty partner.
Yeah.
Your partner should
Yeah.
be able to hear I call her my inner psycho. Like my inner psycho is psycho. And I just need to show her to my partners sometimes to keep her in check. And I honestly think one of the biggest things I'm seeing with particularly cishet men in my polyamory coaching practice is that the walk of polyamory, the first thing that it's going to do is force you to feel all these feelings that you don't want to feel, that the nature of monogamy is such that you can bury them for 20 years sometimes. But the second that you become polyamorous, the first thing that's going to happen is all your feelings are going to come up. And women don't have, most women are culturally, it's appropriate for us to feel our feelings, to express them, to move through them, to seek help. And men, like step one is feel your feelings. And a lot of men can't even do that step. They have no idea how to do it. They're uncomfortable doing it. They don't want the vulnerability to feel the feelings. And then step two is get help with those feelings. And so I feel like men are missing step one and step two. And so they are having so many issues walking this polyamorous walk. Do you have any advice for men who are just afraid to feel their feelings?
Before I answer that, I want to go back and talk about that, like the inner psycho a little bit,
Oh my God,
because
please.
you have no idea how hard I relate to that.
Okay.
Because I literally, like, this was just the other day, right? Like right now, to give a little context, right now, I have left my previous job and I'm currently like looking for another one and doing my own side stuff or whatever. But I'm just like, it's a stressful time, right? I don't have like, this is the first time in my adult life that I haven't had like, a 9 to 5, 40-hour a week thing. So it's stressed me out, and a couple of my wife's, partners or people that she's talking to, whatever word you want to use, are, quite successful people. And I just had to like say, I was just like, I know this is irrational. I feel like they can provide better for you than me. You're going to realize that I give absolutely nothing to this relationship, which was the shit part. And you're just going to leave me. And like the look was just like, oh my God, no. Like, what the fuck? And I was like, okay, thank you. And similarly, like it's insane the rabbit holes your brain can go down, because there was one time, I don't even think there was any sort of context or like incident made this like triggered this for me or like led me to this, but I was just like in a bad place one day, and I'm just like, I feel there's this irrational fear that you get off on lying to me and doing things and then telling me that something is the case. And she's like, no, 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 what? Like, what does your brain do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's me. Like, but yeah, that's so I relate to that so hard. But literally just being able to tell your partner about that and get that reassurance from them, or even not. Sometimes I'll say like, I don't think I need anything for this, but I just want to say I'm feeling this way about this thing, and they'll be like, okay, thanks for telling me. And yeah, it's incredible what just getting that out can do. Even and like you said, as soon as I said those things, I was like, these are not right. I offer more in my relationship than just straight up money. Like, that is not the only thing I offer in a relationship. Like, it's so silly. So remind me again, what was your previous question? Because I went off track.
No, it's great. And I want to say, like, my husband has similar, does he make more money than me, and is his dick bigger than mine? That's like his inner masculine.
The dick thing. That is a thing that we are all taught to like be super fucking insecure about, and it sucks, and I hate it because it still affects me to this day. Like, I just like it's so, and like, and it's a thing that like we said before, like even if you can name it and be like, this is a silly thing to think about, like you just like can't stop because it's just like drilled into you, not only in your monogamous life but also in your polyamorous life. Like, it's just comes at you from all sides, and it's taught to you from birth as a man that like if your dick is small or like even average size, you're not good enough. Like, you can't satisfy anyone. Like, it's awful, and like it's not true, but it's so hard to like just make that not true, like in your head. Like,
well,
and I know, like, to be frank, like I know people and I've heard people online with, frankly, like big dicks that still have these fucking issues. Like, sometimes the actual like size of it often doesn't even matter. Like, it's kind of a dysphoria sort of thing,
Totally. It is total dysphoria. And sometimes it's not even like, is my dick big? In polyamory, it's, is his bigger than mine? And so it doesn't even matter. Right. And like, I could even be like, actually, I don't like big dicks. I say that all the time. I'm not a size queen. They're uncomfortable for me, and it does not matter. Like my
Mhm.
speaking of
Mhm.
listening to women, like that doesn't matter. And like I get it, the pressure, this is the damage done to men from our toxic masculine culture. Y'all are victims and
Oh
survivors
yeah.
of this. And so it's super, super toxic. So to go back to the question we had tabled is I was talking about the first
Mhm.
thing that happens is men are going to need to feel their feelings. And the next thing is they might
Mhm.
need help with their feelings. Do you have any advice for men on step one, feeling their feelings, and step two, seeking help with the feelings they're feeling?
Yeah, so step one, the number one thing I can say that might resonate, even though it's, problematic language, that's how it goes. Feeling your feelings does not make you a pussy. Like, you are not, obviously like don't love using that word in that context, but like, that's I feel like that's what gets across. Just like you are not a worse man, a lesser man, anything like that for simply acknowledging how you feel and trying to deal with it. Because I dealt with that for the longest, like, sharing those feelings is not masculine. It's not, it makes you weak. It makes you not a tough, strong person, even though and like this is something I struggled with, not even having ever felt like a particularly like manly man. Like you still, even if you don't feel like that's your identity, that you're a macho person, you still deal with feeling like you're a lesser man for like sharing your feelings. So that's like the number one thing. Like you can literally you can think about them, you can talk about them, you can feel them. It doesn't make you any less of a man. It's probably going to make you a better person in the long run. Like like to like name those things and talk about it. And like man, the seeking help, I feel like we all, oh my gosh, outside of polyamory, I recently got diagnosed with ADHD. It took me, despite having symptoms my entire life, 31 years to go to the fucking doctor. Like, and like, I mean, I'm like, they're like, well, yeah, you have this. I'm like, yeah, I know, I think. Like, I think I knew. um, like there's such a stigma. Like I feel like there it's tough for me to give any like personal advice about one person, what one person can do to kind of like make themselves like seek help or at least communicate about it or something like that. Not necessarily in a therapist, doctor sort of way, but literally just in a, communicative sort of way. It's hard for me to give advice on that, but I think as a whole, as a society, as a polyamorous community, we just need to like destigmatize that, right? Like make a more welcoming environment for hearing it. And that problem is not perpetuated by women. Like
Right.
from my experience, for the most part, women are not the ones saying like if you share your feelings, you're weak, you're ooh, I don't like that. Like I don't know if I've even ever actually heard that from anyone I've known. Like I see posts about literally everything, but like I don't think I've ever actually legitimately heard that from a woman. Like they do not care. Like I mean they care, but like they don't think lesser of you for it. So that would be my thing. Is just like it doesn't make you lesser, and like you kind of have to repeat it to yourself over and over and over, day after day. Like it doesn't make you a lesser person. Like because even when you conceptualize that, you still feel like it does, and it still doesn't.
Yes, totally. Well, and not only like does feeling your feelings not make you less of a man, like let's change it to feeling your feelings makes you more of a man. Like let's move out of
Yeah,
toxic masculinity, which is not feeling your feelings, and true masculinity, or what I would call like the sacred masculine, is feeling your feelings, taking responsibility for them, and seeking to
yeah,
heal. For some reason, those things are deemed feminine qualities, and that's fucked up. So I want to wrap this up real quick. I
yeah.
always start my interviews, and for some reason, I forgot today. Doing a privilege check and sharing your identity so that anyone listening to this interview knows the lens that you're coming from. So for me, I am my privileges and biases and identity. I am a cis white woman who presents in a heterosexual primary relationships with, which gives me a lot of privilege. I'm queer, non-disabled, and I'm not sure about the neurodivergent thing yet. I am also on a path of learning that I might not be as typical as I thought I was. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mhm.
And what about you?
I am cis, white, hetero, flexible. I've recently come to terms with like, but overwhelmingly presenting hetero. I actually want to make a TikTok about that term because I can't believe I didn't know about it until like a few months ago because it's amazing. Um, Not disabled, ADHD, like I said, but a very overall privileged person. And I think it is crucially important, both inside and outside of polyamory, to acknowledge those things at every time we need to, because it is amazing, even when you consider yourself a, progressive person, just how much your privilege smacks you in the face all the time. Like and it should smack you in the face. Sometimes you just like, dodge the punch and say something shitty and then, oh, I'm out of the woods, whatever. But like it is amazing how many times, even in one day, your privilege as a man, as a cis person, as, non-disabled person, everything comes into play that you just don't even notice, which is part of the privilege, right? So, like, I think
Totally.
it is very crucial to always be thinking about your privilege and, kind of just internalizing how it affects you and other people.
Yes, amen. And just the ability to have large accounts and to be out and to have lives in which it's safe for us to be out as content creators, polyam content creators, is massively tied to our privilege. And so, as much as I'm honored to be considered one of the bigger polyam content creators that people appreciate, and same with you, it is absolutely tied to my privilege and my bias and my lens. And so I just want people to always be examining every single thing I say through my privilege. And I want to end this with talking about anything you want to shout out, because you have a monthly support group, yes?
Yes. I have a monthly support group. The next meeting is at this weekend, September 11th. I'll have a link on my link tree and my bios everywhere. That's been great. It's more of like a small, a lot of Discord servers and stuff like that, and communities, just they feel you enter them and they're just so big, right? Like you don't feel like you can really know anybody that you can. What this is a very small one. The we've had like 10 people on it the last couple times, and it's just been like a very, very nice to be able to actually share one-on-one instead of just joining, a group or a page or whatever and just shouting into the void of thousands and thousands of people. All right, so highly recommend that. Like I said, I recommend the podcast Molding Masculinity. I've been on a huge kick lately of kind of veering my content more towards like the positive masculinity, side of polyamory, because I didn't even realize until I started posting about it how much people appreciate, how much people want it, how much people need it. So highly recommend that podcast. It's great. Yeah, I mean, on a more typical shout out, like I make shirts, I make stickers. I'm about to try to do a project where I'm upgrading all my stickers to like this really high quality vinyl sort of thing that I have with this one, because people really, really fucking like this one. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Been trying to do more of that. Plus, like I said, I'm out of work right now, so you're supporting me a whole lot by buying these.
Do you
But yeah,
have a Venmo
um,
people can drop tips in right now if they enjoyed this interview, or if you're listening to this on the playback right now or on the podcast? Is there a way for people to just send you money and tip you for the work that you're doing?
I do have I gotta say, I've never even heard the website out loud. Ko-fi?
Yeah, I
Because
think
the
it's
whole thing is you
coffee.
can I know, because the whole thing is like you can buy me a coffee, but it's spelled Ko-fi, and I'm like, but that's Ko-fi. Whatever that website is, that's in my link tree if you just want to send a very small tip, anything like that. I also have recently put up on my Ko-fi coffee, whatever you want to call it. I am doing art commissions for polycules. So if you want your polycule to have sort of an illustrated, like art sort of, commission thing, I can do that for you. So,
I
but
love
yeah,
it.
that if you want to directly support me in a small way, that's how to do it.
Awesome. And if you're listening to this right now, we've got a podcast. It's just called Remodeled. It's not even Remodeled Love. You can find it on all major listening platforms. You can also just go to remodeledlove.com and find links to literally everything that I'm doing. Make sure you're following my polyamory platform on Instagram, which is actually Remodeled Love. Home Slice Productions is my personal account. And I just want to thank you for chatting with me today. And I have one more question for you. So, being super hot and super smart and super funny and super polyamory content creator famous, Do you have the problem that my husband has, which is you've got bitches from all over the world being like, oh my God, I'm in love with you. I want to date you. But then in your city, you cannot find a girlfriend.
Uh, so no. So I actually, I wouldn't describe the prior as that intense as you did, but that vibe a little bit. But locally, I generally like. I actually haven't been on a dating app in like 2 years,
Oh.
because I generally just like I make like most people ask me like, oh, how do you find partners locally or like people to date locally? Honestly, like I say that, and the person I'm currently dating locally was a Tinder match from like 2 years ago. But but I generally just like meet people, make friends, and then things happen from there.
Oh.
It's my weirdly enough, as vague and as like useless as this sounds, my number one polyamory dating tip is just treat people like people instead of like prey. Like, and it'll be fine. Like,
You
so
really are
yeah.
the good Chad. It comes full circle. All right, my
Thank
friend,
you.
thank you so much for sitting down with me today. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. Follow at PolyamFam on Instagram and TikTok if you're not already. And have a great day.
Thank you for having me. I love doing this collaborative stuff.
Yep.
So
Bye, love.
bye.